Hello viewers. Welcome to the facts of the CCP's tyrannical persecution of Christians. I'm Link. 2024 was the first year of the CCP's 3-year tough battle against the Church of Almighty God. From the beginning of the year, the arrests of Christians across the country continued without respite. Around 8 p.m. on May 23rd, authorities in Bordeaux City, Anhui Province, launched a coordinated arrest operation. 22 Christians were arrested from their homes for their belief in God. Before their arrests, they had been monitored and tracked by the police for a long time. Among the 22 arrested, 11 are known to be elderly Christians over the age of 65. The oldest was 79-year-old Chin Mei. Before her arrest, Chin Mei suffered from coronary heart disease and stomach problems. She was frail, weighing only 80 to 90 pounds. But the CCP did not spare her on account of her advanced age and serious illnesses. Instead, she was held in a detention centre along with the other Christians. This was not her first arrest. 9 years earlier, at the age of 70, Chin Mei had been arrested and detained for 1 month for her belief in Almighty God. After being incarcerated this time, the detention centre staff repeatedly tried to force Chin Mei and the others to sign the 3 statements and give up their faith. Chin Mei and the others did not yield and were subjected to corporal punishment, forced to sit on a hard plank for 13 to 14 hours a day. They were required to sit cross-legged, hands on their knees, and keep their bodies perfectly straight and still. The detention centre staff also confiscated her dentures, making it nearly impossible for her to eat. The prolonged corporal punishment was more than the elderly and frail Chin Mei could bear. Just 21 days later, she was tortured to death in the detention centre. The other Christians detained with her were also subjected to inhuman torture. The CCP has never treated Christians as human beings, no matter how old or ill they are. It casually brutalises and savages them all the same. Because Chin Mei was persecuted to death, we have no way of knowing the full extent of what she endured. What follows are the accounts given by Song Li and the other Christians detained with Chin Mei.
At
around 8 p.m. on May 23rd, 2024, Sister Chen Xin and I were at my home discussing church work when a police officer suddenly burst in, pointed at us and yelled, "Don't move! Nobody move!" Immediately after, 7 or 8 more officers rushed in. One of them shouted at Chen Xin, "We've been tracking you for over 20 days. What are you doing here?" Without showing any warrant, they forcibly searched us twice. They confiscated our computer memory cards, which contained materials related to our faith, and then ransacked the house like bandits. Afterward, they escorted us to the detention center. At the detention center, the police repeatedly interrogated me about the church and asked about activities relating to my faith. I didn't tell them anything. After a while, I saw Sister Chin Mei being brought in. She looked extremely weak, and her face was pale. We didn't speak. As soon as she entered, she collapsed onto a long bench and lay there for a little over half an hour. I heard from Chen Xin that during her interrogation, she heard the police shouting loudly at Chin Mei. When she later saw Chin Mei, her face was ashen and her body was trembling uncontrollably. On May 25th, a guard ordered us to sign the 3 statements to deny God. When we refused, the guard immediately snapped. If you don't sign, you'll be punished by sitting on the hard plank. Starting now, it ends when you sign. Sitting on the hard plank means the guards forcing detainees to fold up their sleeping mats and quilts, put them aside, and sit on the bare wooden board. During this punishment, we had to keep our backs straight and sit cross-legged. We weren't allowed to stretch our legs, and our hands had to be placed on our knees. We had to hold this single position. After just a short time, my legs would become sore and numb. It was excruciating. We were also required to remain motionless in this fixed position for long periods. If we so much as moved, the guard would berate us or punish us by forcing us to stay up at night on watch duty. At that time, I was forced to sit on the plank for 13 to 14 hours every single day in that one fixed position. This corporal punishment lasted for 21 days. Later, I heard that 79-year-old Sister Ćin Mei had been tortured to death. I was also severely tortured. Since I already suffered from severe rheumatism, this prolonged punishment made my legs swell and ache terribly. It was very difficult to stand up, and walking was excruciating. I requested to see a doctor twice, but the medicine they gave me was useless. Another sister arrested with me was Wang Chao, who was in her 50s. Once, her high blood pressure flared up, and she was suffering from severe dizziness. Even so, the police didn't let her rest, and still forced her to sit on the hard plank for 13 to 14 hours every day.
Another Christian, 77-year-old Yi Ning, was also arrested on May 23rd. She was close in age to Ćin Mei, who was tortured to death, and they were both held in the same detention centre. Yi Ning also refused to sign the 3 statements and held fast to her faith. So, she was similarly forced to sit on the hard plank.
The police started forcing me to sit on the hard plank. On the afternoon of May 25th, I was the only believer in God in the cell. The other detainees only had to sit for 2 or 3 hours a day, but I was forced to sit for 13 to 14 hours. Except for eating, sleeping, and using the toilet, I was forced to sit on that plank the entire time, forbidden to move. Every time I got up, my legs were sore and weak. I couldn't walk, and I couldn't straighten my back. It took me a long time to recover enough that I could just about walk by holding on to the wall. After more than 10 days, my buttocks and ankles were covered in thick, painful calluses from the pressure. Around 9 p.m. on June 14th, I heard others in the cell saying that someone had died from sitting on the plank. An 80-year-old woman. She was Sister Ćin Mei. When I heard that the sister had died, I was filled with hatred for the CCP. They are worse than beasts. Just because we believe in God, they torture us with such cruel methods. I was 77, and Sister Ćin Mei was nearly 80. Yet they still subjected us to corporal punishment and abuse, with absolutely no regard for our lives. They treat the lives of believers as if they're worthless. Their sinister goal was to force us to sign the 3 statements and betray God. The CCP's actions are so wicked. It was only then that I saw clearly that the CCP is an evil demon hostile to God.
From the ordeals described by these 2 Christians, we can see that in China, anyone who believes in Almighty God will be cruelly tortured and abused by the CCP, regardless of their age. The CCP does not treat Christians as human beings at all. Another Christian, 71-year-old Zhao Rong, had a similar experience. Before her arrest, she had been monitored by the CCP police for a long time. We'll now hear Zhao Rong's experience.
Around 9 p.m. on May 23rd, 4 police officers suddenly burst into my home. One of them said to me, "You're a believer in Almighty God. We know exactly where you go every day. You went to another gathering this afternoon, didn't you?" I thought to myself, so they've been monitoring me all this time. Believing in God isn't a crime. I'm walking the right path in life. I ignored him. Then they said, "Hand over all your things and save us the trouble." I refused. The police then ransacked all 6 rooms, leaving my home in a complete mess. They confiscated an HP computer, a cell phone, and other items. After that, they took me to the detention center. As soon as I entered the detention center, I saw Sister Ćin Mei lying on a long bench. I didn't know what had happened to her, but I could see she was curled on her side, with her hands curled up by her face, trembling. I remembered Ćin Mei had said before that since her 40s, she had suffered from many illnesses, including coronary heart disease and stomach problems. Her body was very weak. She said that if it hadn't been for her faith, she wouldn't be alive today. Now that she had been arrested by the CCP police, I was very worried about her health. The next morning, as I passed by Ćin Mei's cell, I saw that she couldn't eat. She said the steamed bun was cold and asked a guard for some hot water, but the guard refused. Ćin Mei used to wear dentures, but after she was brought to the detention center, I heard the guards had confiscated them. I saw her holding food in her mouth, unable to swallow. She was in great pain. In the detention center, they only fed us boiled cabbage stalks. They weren't even cooked until soft and had no flavor at all. Even with my teeth, I found them hard to eat. How could Ćin Mei possibly eat without her dentures? I thought it would be very difficult for her to survive in there. Inside the cell, more than 20 of us were crammed together on a large communal sleeping platform. We each had only about 1.5 feet of space, making it difficult to even turn over. Lying on that hard plank, I was ice cold and in agony. Just after 4 p.m. on May 25th, the head detainee in my cell told me, "You should write a statement of guarantee." I was furious when I heard that. Writing a statement of guarantee meant denying and betraying God. I would never do it. In front of more than 20 other detainees, I declared loudly, "I won't write it." A guard at the door berated me. "Why won't you write it? If you write it, you can go home in a few days. If you don't, you can forget about leaving." Then they punished me by forcing me to sit on the hard plank all day. I was 71 years old, arrested and abused by the CCP like this, just for believing in God. Those non-believing suspects, no matter how serious their crimes, only had to sit on the hard plank for 2.5 hours a day before they were allowed to move around freely. But no matter how old we were, if we believers in Almighty God didn't sign the 3 statements, we had to endure their torture and abuse, forced to sit on the hard plank for 13 to 14 hours every day. I was the only believer in Almighty God in my cell. So the guards instructed the head detainee to make me sit directly under a surveillance camera, so my posture could be monitored. I didn't dare move freely, afraid that if the guards saw, they would punish me by assigning me to night watch duty. So I had to be extremely careful not to break any rules. Sitting on the hard plank for 13 to 14 hours a day was agonizing enough. My legs and buttocks ached terribly. On top of that, they made me stand guard for 2 hours every other night. The detention center rules stated that those over 70 didn't have to do night watch duty. But because I believed in God, I still had to do it at 71. Even then, I still refused to sign the 3 statements. So the guards came up with another way to torture me. They wouldn't let me out during yard time and made me continue sitting on the hard plank. The plank was hard and cold, and the pressure on my buttocks and ankles was excruciating. Around 8 p.m. on June 14th, I felt discomfort in my heart and requested to see a doctor. The doctor had me do an ECG. When it was done, I asked, "Is my heartbeat irregular?" The doctor said, "It's nothing serious. You're fine." I said, "I can barely hold on. How can you say I'm fine?" In the end, the doctor just gave me 1 pill, and that was it. When I returned to my cell to sit on the hard plank, I saw the doctor hurrying toward Ćin Mei's cell. Everyone in our cell looked out the door and saw a yellow vest being thrown out from the entrance of cell number 4, where Ćin Mei was. One of the detainees said, "They couldn't save that one." Only believers in Almighty God were made to wear yellow vests. The guards forbid any talk of deaths in custody. I knew then that Sister Ćin Mei had been tortured to death by them. By that point, I had already been forced to sit on the hard plank for 21 days. At 71 years old, I was suffering such abuse and torture in the detention center just for my faith. I was nearing my breaking point, and I had no idea when it would end. On June 15th, after washing, I went to sit on the hard plank again. But the head detainee said, "You don't have to sit anymore." Someone in the cell remarked, "A life was traded for your freedom." It turned out the detention center stopped forcing us to sit on the plank because they were afraid someone else would die. Later, the police interrogated me 3 more times, demanding that I disclose information about church activities and tried a softer approach to persuade me. But I didn't tell them anything. Whenever I thought of Sister Ćin Mei, nearly 80 years old, being tortured to death by them, my heart filled with hatred for the CCP. I refused to tell them a single thing. They threatened. "You think we can't do anything to you just because you won't talk? We'll still give you a heavy sentence of 6 years. If you confess, you'll get 1 year at most." I thought to myself, 6 years? So be it. I will not betray God. One of them continued, 6 years? Do you have any idea how old you'll be? You'd better think about it. I ignored them. He then tried to intimidate me, saying, "I'm giving you a final 10 minutes. Confess, and you'll get a lighter sentence. If you don't, This is your last opportunity. You'd better take it. I didn't listen to his devilish words. I thought, I don't want this opportunity. Betraying God is something I will never do. Seeing my refusal to compromise, he stood up from his chair and said dejectedly, I give up. Your God has saved you. After that, the police never interrogated me again. Later, I was released on bail pending trial. Thank God.
Jung Chin was also arrested, along with Chין Mei, Song Li, Yi Ning, and Zhao Rong. At the time, she was 67 years old. Next, let's hear Jung Chin's experience.
I was arrested at home on May 23rd and was later taken to a detention center. When I arrived, they wouldn't let me take the medicine I had brought from home for hemiplegia caused by a previous stroke. They only allowed me to take the medicine prescribed by the detention center doctor. On May 25th, a guard ordered me to sign the 3 statements. When I refused, he forbade me from washing my face or brushing my teeth each day. I had to get up at 6:20 every morning and immediately start sitting on the hard plank. I sat like that for 13 to 14 hours a day. The plank was very hard, and it caused painful calluses to form on my buttocks. I was only allowed to move occasionally for no more than 5 seconds at a time. I even had to ask for permission to use the toilet. I was forced to sit on that hard plank every day, other than when sleeping, eating, and using the toilet. It made one side of my body go numb, and my legs were sore, painful, and swollen. It was unbearable. I had suffered a stroke previously and had had hemiplegia, but the guards showed no mercy to those who were ill. I was forced to sit on the plank starting from May 25th, and this continued until June 15th. I sat on that plank for 21 consecutive days, and my body grew weaker and weaker. On June 20th, I lost consciousness and collapsed. I didn't remember anything after that. I was later told that while I was unconscious, 3 guards shouted at me. One of them stepped on the head of my bed, pointed at my head, and accused me of faking my illness to deceive them. He threatened that there would be serious consequences if I didn't get up. Later, when I was feeling a bit better, I asked to see a doctor. The doctor checked my blood pressure and did an ECG, and just gave me 1 blood pressure pill. They showed no real concern for whether I lived or died. I knew that Sister Chìn Mei had already been tortured to death, and I felt I wasn't far from death myself. When the police saw that I truly couldn't walk, they stopped forcing me to sit on the hard plank. At 9 a.m. on June 23rd, my family arranged for me to be released on bail pending trial. At that time, I could only get around in a wheelchair. My family took me to a hospital, where I stayed for more than 10 days. To this day, the police still frequently come to my home to harass me.
Charlene had been arrested for her faith several years prior. In 2024, she was arrested again and held in the same detention centre as Chìn Mei. Let's hear her experience.
On the evening of May 23rd, a guard at the detention center made me wait in the hallway. I secretly glanced into each cell to see how many people were there. That was the first time I saw Chìn Mei. She was lying on a long wooden bench, her frail body hunched. Her eyes were shut tight, her face was purplish, and her body was shaking non-stop. I saw Ćin Mei a total of 4 times. The first 2 times, she was in the same condition. The third time was at the detention center's medical screening center. I saw she was walking very slowly with a police officer following her closely. The fourth time was during cell assignments. I saw Ćin Mei being assigned to cell number 4 by herself.
5月25号一大早，
Early on the morning of May 25th,
管教就告诉我
a guard told us all we had to sign the 3 statements.
我不签。
I
老
refused.
头说不签。
The head detainee said, "If you don't sign, everyone in this cell will get yelled at, and we might be collectively punished by being forced to sit on the hard plank. If you don't sign, things will go badly for you. Don't you want to get out of here?"
我生气
I
地
said
说
angrily, "Why should I sign? My choice is not to sign."
看你能用到哪天啊？
Seeing my firm
坚
stance,
定
the head detainee took the pen and offered it to others. But everyone shook their heads and refused to sign.
不签，你们就没有好日子
A
过。
little while later, a guard shouted viciously,
找到
"Everyone who didn't sign will be punished by being forced to sit on the hard plank. The rest of you keep a close watch on them."
坐起来，挺直。
The cell was always damp and cold. We sat on the hard plank, forbidden to move.
几天后，
After a few days, my back began to ache,
冻得就半拉的身
and one side of my body started to go numb from the cold. To keep on going, and to avoid more verbal abuse, I tried my best to sit according to their requirements. But the plank was so cold that I had to constantly alternate massaging my legs just to endure it.
6月9号提审
During
时，
an interrogation on June 9th, I mentioned that I was sensitive to the cold. They must have realized this was my weak
把我
spot
们监视的空
and
调
quickly cranked the air conditioning in our cell to its lowest setting. 2 of the detainees who were allowed to move around freely both caught colds.
然后
Then they moved me directly into the path of the air vent.
连我后面
Even the 2 people behind me were left freezing from the cold air.
说你呢，
Sister Chen had rheumatism and was especially sensitive to the cold.
他说
She said, "I'm in so much pain. This is unbearable." Sister Lee got diarrhea from the cold and couldn't stop it. The cold made my back go numb and my whole body shiver.
只能一刻不停
I had to
地
massage
按摩
myself constantly just to relieve the pain. My stomach also bothered me the whole time. The only warm thing I got to eat was a sip of porridge for breakfast.
但喝下去
But
不
less
到
than
20
20 minutes after eating it,
又开始感
I'd
冒
start to feel cold again. After the interrogation,
提审后
I was
我
forced
被
to
继续
continue
关闭
sitting on the hard plank,
还被
with the
控制
cold air from the AC blasting me constantly.
实在受不了了。
It was really unbearable.
根据我的身体状况，
Based on my physical condition and my past experience working in a
知道
hospital,
快有人承受不了了。
I knew someone would soon
是
break
那年
down,
纪大的姊妹，
especially the older sisters.
心里就一直祷告神，
I kept praying to God in my heart,
神啊，
"Oh God, if they have to torture someone to death before they stop,
消停
then let it be
让我
me.
死吧
It seems they won't be satisfied until 1 or 2 of us are dead."
当时
At that time, I kept an eye on the health of several of the elderly sisters,
小声地
quietly
提醒他们
reminding them to take their medicine if they
吃药
needed
吃
it.
药
At the same time, I prayed to God unceasingly.
神啊
"Oh God, please give us the
求你
strength
加入我们
and
承受
endurance to bear
和
this."
忍耐力。6月14号晚上，
Around 9 p.m. on June 14th, I saw people in white coats rushing towards cell number 4.
监视区之后
Then I heard the sound of machinery clanking,
碰撞的声音，
and I knew they were trying to resuscitate someone. During the commotion,
我
I
听到
heard
一个
someone
人
say in
惊讶地
surprise,
说
She's 80 years old.
我就知道
I knew then that Sister Ćin Mei had died. My heart was in turmoil for a long time. After praying, I remembered the words of Almighty God. If at the moment that your life is about to be taken from you, you are at ease, willing, and submit without complaint, you feel that you have fulfilled your responsibilities, obligations, and duties to the end, and your heart is joyful and at peace. If you go like this, then for God, you have not gone at all. Rather, you are living in another realm and in another form. All that's happened is that your manner of living has changed. You are not truly dead.
琢磨着神的话，
Pondering God's words,
我的心
my heart grew calm. I thought about Ćin Mei, a sister nearly 80 years old, who hadn't been able to wear her dentures. She surely couldn't have eaten anything,
吃不下去。
and yet she was subjected to such inhuman abuse. The CCP evil demons truly have no regard for human life.
折磨死一个
To them, torturing an elderly woman in her 70s or 80s to death
碾死一只马
is no different than crushing an ant. Seeing how the CCP tramples on human life, my heart was filled with hatred for the CCP, the Great Red Dragon.
我被释放
Since my release, my tailbone has never been right. If I sit for a long time, I have to move around a bit before I can walk. My ability to walk has also deteriorated.
时间稍微长点儿
After a short while, I need to sit down and rest.
我还
I also developed cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases,
是突发心理
which were
压力
triggered by the sudden psychological stress.
我前几年还因
I had been
信
arrested for my faith once before, a few years ago.
这一次被抓后
This time,
说
after I was arrested, a police officer
上次
said,
打压的力度应该够大
"We thought we cracked down hard enough on you last time. Why do you still believe in God?"
我现在想回
I want to answer now. As long as the CCP doesn't kill me, I will continue to follow God.
These Christians suffered such cruel torment in the demonic claws of the CCP. The CCP does not treat Christians as human beings, indiscriminately and savagely torturing them, regardless of age, to force them to abandon their faith, with no regard for whether they live or die. These elderly people, who should have been enjoying their golden years, were instead arrested for their faith, thrown into jail, subjected to inhuman abuse and torture, with one of them dying tragically on a cold, hard plank. 79-year-old Ćin Mei is gone, tortured to death by the CCP because she would rather die than sign the 3 statements. The dead are gone, but the aching scars of the living will forever be a silent indictment of the CCP's atrocities. That's all for today's program. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to the New Age and stay tuned to the facts of the CCP's tyrannical persecution of Christians. See you next time.